So I would like you to imagine that you're on a beach in the east coast of South Africa. Not just on the beach, but you walk out into the water, put your toe in the water. It's the Indian Ocean, so it's warm and inviting. And you swim out, this is feeling good. You swim out past where the waves break, and it's just you and the deep blue sea. And then you remember an episode of Shark Week that you watched last week. And you're like, hell no. Okay, whoa, South Africa is notorious for its shark population, right? The adrenaline starts running and you kind of swim back to shore real quick. But what you may not know is the biggest threat to swimmers in that beach, in that coast. It's not the big predators. It's not the great white sharks. It's actually something under the surface that you never see with the naked eye. And those are tides and rip currents that operate where nobody can see them. And when I was 15 years old, I almost drowned on that exact stretch of coast. I was an experienced junior lifeguard, experienced swimmer, and I was out with a friend one day having a great time and got caught in a rip current. And if this has ever happened to you, it is a really frightening experience. You get pulled under the water, you get sucked all the way down the beach, and it's like you really are helpless to do anything about it. And a lot of people drown that way because of the shock, right, of getting sucked into the current. Anyway, I found my way back up the beach. I looked quite a sight, right? It was no Bo Derek from 10, I can assure you. And I'm like, sputtering, sand everywhere. My body's like shaking with shock. And I look around and nobody even noticed what had happened to me. Like, I almost drowned, people. And everybody was oblivious, right? And this moment in time in history is a very dangerous and precarious time for our kids. They're more connected, they're more technologically savvy, they're more advanced than ever before, but they're more depressed, more anxious, more fearful, more unprepared, and more prone to self-harm than we've ever seen, right? And for the last 13 years, I've been working with young people from all over the world and their parents. Don't forget the parents. Yeah, we'll get to that. I've been working with young people and their parents from all over the world. These are kids with huge dreams and aspirations to be professional athletes, right? To be All-Americans in college, to be on the LPGA Tour, the PGA Tour, really big dreams. And I've seen many great successes, kids that have gone on to do those very things or other really cool things. But more than the big successes are the stories of kids that never, ever realized their potential. And not just did they not realize their potential, but they either gave up because it was too difficult, right? Or they got so anxious and so stressed that they started some damaging behaviors that hurt themselves. And so the question I'm here to ask is why? Why are we screwing up our kids? Why are we screwing up our kids? And what can we do to change the tide, right? It's like we're standing on that beach and this tide has kind of come for them and we feel helpless to do anything about it. Well, all the research points back to us as parents, which my daughter's been trying to tell me for years, but I obviously wasn't listening, right? The research points right back to us because the way we've parented in the last few decades has actually stunted our kids' social and emotional growth, right? And I'm a Gen Xer. Who are the Gen Xers in the room? Okay, born from 1965 to 1980, right? And look at that. Put your hands up again. Wow. Okay, we're dominating. We are a kick-ass, am I allowed to say ass? We are a kick-ass generation, people. It's unbelievable. We are so independent because we were called the latchkey generation because our parents went to work and we were very, very independent, right? We were so independent and self-sufficient. When we had kids, we wanted to give them the world. We wanted to give them everything, maybe the opportunities that we didn't have. But as a result, we created a generation that's often called the snowflake generation, right? They're soft. They're soft. If you touch them, they might just fall apart. And it shocks me on a daily basis how unprepared the kids are to go into their future. And iGen, which is actually the Z gen, right? But we call them iGen. It's a new terminology because they are the internet generation. These young people born from 1995 to 2012, who are the iGeners in the room? Come on, give a shout out. Okay, not too many of them. But this internet generation has never known a world without technology, right? They were little kids when the smartphone came on the scene, and they've lived through the proliferation of social media. And in my experience with parents and with kids and what they've gone through, it all points, and the research, right, points to 3 cultural culprits, is what I call them. 3 reasons why this generation is the most coddled and the most unprepared generation in all of history. And that is safety, control, and progress. Safety, control, and progress. Let's drill down real quick into some of those. Safety. The world is so much safer than it's ever been. You might not feel that, but it is. Externally, it's very safe. My nephew's coming from South Africa for Christmas, and boy, there's a gadget to make everything safe, right? I remember as a kid driving to Zimbabwe from South Africa. I'm from Durban, South Africa, and not even having to wear a seatbelt, right? The world is a much safer place. And in our desire, our zeal, and our enthusiasm to make our kids safe, we did something that became a little dangerous, and that's emotional safety. We wanted to protect them and shield them from disappointment, right? We didn't want them to feel pain. And we thought that was fairly innocent. Okay, we'll do their homework, no problem. Helping them with a little homework, come on, don't be ridiculous, right? Or you did their science project. So they go into school with a science project worthy of MIT, and they're in the 7th grade, right? Or we wrote their college admission essay. And here's one that hits close to home in 2019. We paid for them to go to the college of their dreams. We bought their SAT score. If they can't get in on their own, they shouldn't be going there. That's the bottom line. So in making our children safe, we actually didn't give them the one thing they really need from us. Because we shouldn't be preparing the road for the child, right? Let's make everything smooth. Let's help them here. Oh, let's protect them from this and fight this battle for them. No, we should have been making the child prepared for the road. Because we cannot control what happens in life. And the one thing we can give our kids is certainty, not of their environment and not of external factors, but certainty of themselves, right? So that's where we screwed up. That's number 1, okay? It gets better. No. Number 2, and I've come face to face with number 2 many, many, many times in my career, and that is controlling parents. Overly controlling behaviors, right? I was with a dad, sitting down with him. His daughter was going to Stanford. How can you argue with that? Stanford, incredible school. Really psyched, well done, awesome, right? Thinking that she's a high school senior and she's aced her SATs. Come to find out, she's 5 years old. 5 years old, and he's mapped the journey all the way there, right? Unbelievable. And parents want to give their kids the best coaching, the best, they'll hire Bob Rotella for the mental game, and the best fitness trainers. And some of these parents, they must have a PhD when they do their kids' tournament strategy, because I can't even understand it. It's so complicated, right? It's unbelievable. But the bottom line is this: control is crippling. Control is debilitating. It's debilitating because overly controlling behaviors, people that do that forget the one very, very important thing. To be highly successful, only 20% of it is strategy. Only 20% of it is the coaching and the tools and the lessons, your Monday soccer, Tuesday violin, Wednesday piano. All of that is only 20% of great success. 80% is psychology. And all over the world, people ask me one question, is what is the one thing? My little Johnny or my little Annie, they are the next big thing. They're going to be a phenom. What's the one thing they really need? And my answer never, ever, ever changes. Hunger. Hunger, passion, motivation, right? You have to have hunger to be successful. And what parents don't realize is the more they push, the more they manipulate circumstance, right? You're actually killing the intrinsic passion and motivation in your child. How tragic is that? And I was in India recently, meeting with a dad and his son. Amazing young man, big dreams and hopes to go to college and to play golf professionally. And in talking to them both, I could see that the relationship had broken down. It wasn't a healthy relationship. And dad had come from a career that relied on a strategy of discipline, focus, and a very intense work ethic, right? And he looks at his iGen son with his AirPods in his ears and his hat on backwards and his shirt a little untucked, right? And the dad is saying, oh my gosh, how are you going to be a pro when that's your approach, right? Because he cannot relate. And what he's tried to do is take his model of the world and put it on his son. Make sense? He took his belief of what success looks like. And so when he plays poorly, when he makes a bad decision, you know what he does? He gets negative. He gets mean. He actually really puts, he says some nasty things. And I asked the dad, I said, why do you do that? Why do you say those things to him? That's your child, the person you should love more than anyone on the planet. And he said, oh no, I'm trying to motivate him. No, truly. Oh no, I'm motivating him. That's my way to push him, to make him be better. And I looked at that father in the eyes and I said to him, what you do every time you say something damaging like that to your child, you are reinforcing that voice inside of him that says, I am not enough. Because as human beings, every single one of us fights with that. Every one of us. Nobody's immune unless you're a robot, right? We all have the voice that at times doubts, right? And says, I am not enough. And this dad got tears in his eyes. And he said to me, I'll never do that again, right? I found some leverage. And he said, and whether he does or whether he doesn't, I don't know, we can't control. But the bottom line is control is crippling. And the third one is progress. This world we live in, you talk about bold and beautiful. Oh, wait, that's a sitcom. Bold and brilliant. Can we be beautiful too, please? Come on, let's hear it. Okay. We are bold. Rex, we bold, we beautiful, and we brilliant. And the thing is that progress is overwhelming. Technology is overwhelming. And you might sit there and say, you know what, I can relate to enabling and protecting and being soft for my kids. I hear that. Or you might say, yes, I've been controlling. Or not me, my husband. He's the one who's controlling. But when it comes to technology, you feel that this was not a riptide. This was a tsunami that just came and took your kids, and you may feel absolutely powerless to do anything about it. And it's true. Technology is tough. It really is, because it creates so many connections for your child, right? And in a 2017 interview with Sean Parker, he was the first CEO of Facebook, and he said, which just blows the mind. He said, our whole objective was to take as much of your time and attention, to consume it as much as possible. And earlier in that same interview, he said, God only knows what it's doing to your kids' brains. So iGen, our internet generation, have been like a science experiment. They really have. They've been a social media experiment as they've lived through the proliferation of social media and gained their connections and relationships that way instead of face-to-face. And our kids are dying. Teen suicide in the United States is at an all-time high. So is anxiety, and so is depression. So what are we going to do about it? Parenting is counterintuitive. So if you've been told, listen to your heart. Follow your instincts. Do what you think is best. I say hogwash. Forget that completely, right? It's time for us to wake up. It's time for us to get conscious, because we have a generation, right, to raise. Not just iGen, the next one behind them. So what can we do to change the tide? Instead of safety, instead of trying to protect them, let your kids fail, because failure is not fatal. Failure helps you learn. In fact, failure doesn't really exist, right? It's just an ongoing learning. There's no start or finish. Life is an infinite game, and it never ends, right? Instead of controlling behaviors, let your children choose. If you let them choose and make some decisions, autonomy has a huge role to play in intrinsic motivation. So give them that power. When you go home this week, give your child the benefit of the doubt with just a little more than you did before, right? Let them choose. Let them take back the power in their lives. And when it comes to technology, do not be afraid to be a parent. Don't be afraid. Be bold and brilliant as a parent. What better way to be bold and brilliant, right, than with your kids? And say no, or limit screen time. And you don't have to give your first grader the new iPhone 11 for Christmas. You really don't, right? Because there's only one thing that our kids really need from us, and that's love and connection, right? So nurture those connections, those face-to-face conversations, like so many of the speakers today, right? That we said so many of the same things, the threads. Connect, listen, have empathy. And I want to leave you with this thought. No, not yet. Sorry. I'm telling Jane what to do, ladies and gentlemen. It is not a lack of resources that is putting us in crisis. Our kids have everything they need. Look around you. Every single thing they need. It is not a lack of resources. We have everything. It's a lack of resourcefulness. They are lacking the internal resources to face life, right? And I'm going to leave you with this quote. Let those we love be truly themselves, right? That's the beginning of love. Let those we love be truly themselves. Don't twist them to fit into your image, because then you love only the reflection of yourself that you see in them. Thank you so much.